Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Excalibur Data Systems Roundtable Tech Talk. I am joined today by one of my favorite people from across the pond, Gianmarco Rubino from Halo. Thanks for joining me today, Gianmarco.
Hi, Mike. Thanks for the intro, and yeah, it's finally a pleasure to join the Tech Talks I've been hearing so much about and enjoying watching.
Well, I'm really excited to have you here because we've had the pleasure of working with you now for a few years. And we now get to unleash your smartness upon the whole Halo world out there and the whole ITSM world, for that matter. If you want to find out how to do something that's crazy, ask Gianmarco is usually the answer. And so it's been fun working with Gianmarco and seeing the exciting things that he's been able to help us have customers achieve with their Halo ITSM platform. But Gianmarco's taken on a new role in Halo, where Gianmarco now owns the Halo ITSM product and is helping to drive innovation. And so before we started the recording, Gianmarco was filling me in on some of the small things that Halo has been up to, which my mind was blown because there's some huge things that Halo's been up to. So Gianmarco, tell us a little bit about what you guys have been up to. And for those that haven't caught a previous Tech Talk, Halo's a little bit unique as an organization in that there's a couple of things that they do that I've never seen vendors do before. One is the roadmap is actually on the website. So you can go to the website and see what's planned within the roadmap. Now, is everything always delivered exactly as was on the roadmap? Not always. Some things may be pushed off, and because a new thing, kind of surpassed its importance. But we have quarterly updates to come out from Halo, but these don't all usually get dumped at once. They're kind of rolled out through some beta cycles within Halo, and you get a chance to play with them before they're in the final stable build. So anytime you open up a Halo beta, usually there's new stuff in there. You just got to look at the list and see what's been added, because stuff is constantly being innovated there at Halo. So Gianmarco, talk to us a little bit about what you guys have been up to.
Yeah, definitely. One thing first that you mentioned about the roadmap, there is stuff on there that is it's not like it's going to stay there. We're going to commit to, and there's stuff, like you said, Mike, that we're going to be reactive to. The whole explosion of AI, chat GPT, obviously that we need to adapt, and I think one of the things you said is that we want to adapt as quickly as possible. So you'll hear a few things on that hopefully in the coming weeks and months. And as you said, Mike, everyone who's listening, even if you're already a Halo customer, already evaluating Halo, it's worth grabbing a trial every 3 months, every quarter. Grab a trial and get stuck in. You can see the newest features before you actually see them in your live instance, and just start playing with them. If you have any questions, fire them across. We're excited to sort of share the technology, and that's what we pride ourselves to do. Having said that, we have actually just completed our first quarter of development here at Halo ITSM. There's one particular new feature that is going to be of particular importance for all those customers that are already using Halo and maybe had a bit of issues or questions about a fully codeless report builder. We're happy to announce that we've released that. It's now actually already on the stable. I'm happy to bring up on screen, but obviously the main advantage here, just in theory, is no need to have any database knowledge, any idea of how the schema works, any idea what SQL is, really. You just click a few buttons and you can get a nice graph and chuck it on the portal, and your stakeholder will have their report at the end of the month and their whole sort of idea and visibility of how the business unit's been performing. And bear in mind, this is across the board. You have all certain filters, so that will apply not only for your IT team. You can have a holistic view of IT. You can separate it for the different departments using the system. So having the ability to do all this without having to put any effort into creating data sources or querying the database directly is going to be a huge time saver.
Yeah, and previously, having worked with it, you didn't have to have extreme SQL knowledge. You could grab your DBA, they take a look at the schema and they go, oh, here you go, here's what you need. here's the view you need in order to get what you want. It wasn't a far walk. You guys have just taken it to a whole nother level where it becomes, even Mike could do it. With my limited SQL knowledge, I don't need to ask one of the SQL guys, what do I need here?
I think the main thing here, Mike, is also to think about, you might have a service desk team leader, a service desk manager that it's not really a report that they need at the end of the month or a reporting requirement. They just want to know from a, database perspective, data perspective, how many ticket has, this team closed today and how does it compare to last month or, that kind of thing. And it used to be that because there's something like, it's just a generic question, right, that you don't necessarily have a report written for, you might have to play with filters, change views. Now you just go in the reporting suite, click a couple buttons, and you get the graph. Who's closed the most tickets for my team today? It's immediate. You don't have to. Sometimes it's hard to come up with what reports you need in advance. Present them to your consultant, prepare them, or present them to your DBA, like you said. Those days are gone. You just if you need something immediately, you just, as I said, click a few buttons and that will get it done for you. So yeah, I think that's why it's particularly revolutionary and how it's going to make it easier for the day-to-day of quite a few sort of individuals within the service management world.
Well, why don't you share your screen and let's show everyone what you guys have done.
Let's do it. Yeah, so I'm actually going to start from the data source tab. Here is where you usually select, either use a pre-written data source, such as all incidents and things like that, or you use a system data source, which there isn't many, or you write SQL, right? Now we have the ability to use a query builder, which basically means you're just querying tickets generically. You don't have to type anything. You go into fields and conditions tab, and here is where you start constructing your report. Instead of being, any typing, it's just clicking a few buttons. What fields am I interested in? Let's do something very basic. Ticket ID. In case I want to look at the specifics, I have a hyperlink, right? A summary, when it was created, let's look at date and time, the team, right? And we can look at maybe the category. I'll type, obviously you can type here to make it quicker, right? So these are my fields, and then I can also have conditions to filter the actual data set, right? So for example, I'm only interested in the teams that compose my IT team. Right, so first line, second line, and infrastructure. Bear in mind, this is a fairly basic trial, so we're keeping it fairly simple, right? We can go then and preview the reports and also add a time filter, right? We only say looking at tickets closed today. Let's say there's not much data here. Let's say ticket closed this month, and we see the 6 results. We can already see something maybe isn't categorized, but it's giving us data. It's giving us hyperlinks and so on. We already have a data set. It can be a lot more complex than this. And now we have the ability, again, click with a few buttons to create a nice chart. Again, this doesn't require any sort of code or anything. We just select the type of chart. In this case, I'd say a bar chart makes a lot of sense. On the x-axis, we have, in this case, let's look at the category. And then the y-axis, we have our ticket ID. We want to have tickets by category this month. We count the y-axis, right? We preview the chart, and here we can see there's 2 tickets without category, 3 for business applications, and 1 for desk phone. This is the preview. Of course, we now go in the report, and it's showing us not only the graph, but also the data set. This can be easily then added to a dashboard, published to your agent homepage, or more importantly, to the end user portal for, as I said, our managers to look at. Of course, the requirements can change all the time, and they can just amend the filter. That report will change. If it's a report that you're planning to use again, right? Let's re-add the filters. Quite simply, you can go and save it, and that will immediately be part of your library of reports, right? Now, I'm using quite a simple example here, and it's probably something that you will already have in your library of reports. But of course, it can be way more specific than that, because you can add additional filters, right? You actually only want to see that the tickets, right, which are closed by our friend admin, right? And if we go into the review report, the data set will change. myself as the admin, I've closed 3 tickets, and here we go, right? And this is something that you potentially don't already have a report for, but as you can see, you have it a few clicks away and are able to extract quite quickly. I think
now, are you able to bring up like a report you've already built, and then kind of like do a save as like you do in Word to use a set of parameters, maybe add additional parameters to it, so to create a second report, but you're not starting from scratch?
Yeah, so let's use this perfect example. We want to save this as it is, so we're going to say tickets by category, close this month, and this is going to be IT because we have all our IT teams, and we're going to save this report, and as I said, it's going to be added to all your libraries and so on. We save this as new, right? And this is not IT, this is admin, right? So the default is going to tell you that it's a copy. It's exactly the save as that you were talking about, right?
Exactly.
We override the name here specifically because obviously we know what it's going to be. We go into a field of conditions. As you can see, some of the filters that are on, all of the filters are on the other reports will be here, and we can add additional ones without having to restart from scratch, right? And the same way as that used to apply to a SQL query, it also applies to all the customization that's been done here in a completely codeless and simple way. The other things that I need to bring up, Mike, I like repeating this a lot. We get a lot of positive feedback. Is how simple it is. You actually realize that it's not quite the right order. It's all drag and drop, right? It's all very responsive. You can reorder everything. It's something that to us sounds quite obvious, but you guys always tell me bring it up. It's so good, not everyone does it. And yeah, here you want to group by category. It kind of shifts the whole data, and the click of a second you want to ungroup. It's quite responsive.
Wow.
So yeah, this is one of the things
really
we've been up
cool. Yeah. In the Mad Science Lab there at Halo, I'm asking questions, and they're like, "Yeah, we thought of that. Thanks for your help there, Mike. We already thought of that." I mean, this is the stuff that makes this so cool. Like you just showed, you don't have to have any knowledge of using some sort of reporting tool where you got to jump around here if I want to reorder it, and if I drag and drop it screws everything up. This was made to be super simple, and it's kind of the bread and butter of everything you guys do within the Halo system, which is how is a user going to interact with this, and how do we make that user experience easy?
Yeah. I always say for us is, what drives the excitement here for everyone at Halo is when someone doesn't just use the product, they don't just say it works, they kind of end up loving it, right? There's that kind of like love and excitement and buzz towards the product and the new release, and it just makes us feel like we're doing the right way and the right things. Apologies. And that's what we're sort of trying to continuously bring up. And those calls, your reaction, your questions, it's really valuable to us, and it definitely drives like positive engagement. So for sure.
Well, what I'm always amazed at when I get to see these things is you guys have thought of many of the things, and as a software manufacturer, you really put yourself in the customer's shoes. What are the things that the customer is going to need? How is the customer likely going to interact with this? Like you showed, you want to reorder these, you just drag and drop them. You're not doing, there's no complexity to it. You've handled the complexity on the back end to make it very, very simple for an average user who's never worked with a reporting tool before could build a report in a matter of minutes. All they've got to know is, well, what data needs to be in it. And like you said, hey, we build the report, and it gets shown to the CIO, and the CIO goes, another column I'd like is X. Well, go back in and add the column. Where do you want it? And they can drag it and drop it into the right spot and really deliver value very, very quickly without having to have some class they have to go to learn how to use a reporting tool. This is insane.
Yeah,
this is really, really cool.
It's definitely something that we've heard. Like it always comes from things we hear from our customers and things we that are brought up to us, and like we just want to act on it immediately. We want to make sure that we are responsive to the feedback, and it's come up a few times. Like, what if I just really need this data right now? I don't have my DBA available. I don't know SQL. I can't or don't have the time to learn it, and I don't want to submit a support ticket. Well, that's your answer. So I just want to, make sure that everyone's aware that we do listen to sort of the user stories, the requirements, and we're here to act on them really.
Well, you take all that feedback that's now coming in from the community site, right? And you kind of hear what the customers are looking for. But I mean, this is it's so much reporting. It's something we've talked about for years as we've moved to kind of a dashboard centric world. It's that more real time reporting. It's not often, there's a handful of reports that are built that get mailed out every third Monday of the month or whatever that are kind of static. Most reporting today isn't static. You gave a couple examples in the beginning. I need to know, because maybe we're working through an issue or see a challenge. I need to know X, and I need to know how it looks today. And with this report saved, you guys have done, while this can be a report, it can also be a dashboard, which gets queried in real time when you bring that dashboard up. And, it all starts to flow together where it's not, well, reporting is this and this is this, and they're all separate things. They're all part of one, large, set of things that I can do as a customer, and that can be delivered to customers. This is really exciting. To see how much care has been put into this, and I'm sure there'll be some ideas that'll come up, and we'll see them, show up in the customer community site, and we'll see those innovations and tweaks come later on. What other kind of things have you guys been up to? I mean, this is big, But I know that's not all.
There's a few simple ones that again are gonna kind of simplify a lot of the configuration. One that I really like, because again it's come from real feedback, real user stories, is the ability to quickly configure recurring change freezers, right? So the idea of it's not just this year that we're not going to make changes over the Christmas break. Who makes changes over the Christmas break? We want to have a way to automate that. Right, and I like to link back to what you said before, and we are making Halo more future-proof, right? So there is now the ability not only to have automations run on a workflow, say there's this workflow, there's this condition, run an automation, right? We now have the ability on a workflow to configure an automation to run based on a time schedule. Right, I'll give you a perfect example. Like we all know this. You want to disable an end user account 60 days after they leave, just so you give the time for everyone to put that change. It's very simple to have that action run on the workflow, right? X minutes after the step enters that workflow, right? So it could be a few things, right? It can even be an automatic escalation, right? That's probably the simplest example. Once the ticket is triaged and it enters the in progress step, right? We want to make sure that if it hasn't been, closed, or it hasn't been progressed, locked to a vendor, or no action really has been taken on it, then it does it itself, right? But we want to be able to control what the time entry is. So here we select an automation, right? And on here, we have the ability to select a quick action, which, it's almost the pop-ups. You can configure it quickly, right? We can choose, for example, for it to be to allocate an item, right? And instead to do it whenever the ticket is updated and is on the step, right? We say it's done on a predetermined number of minutes. The example I've used is perfect in this scenario. We actually don't want them to be all hours in the day, because if it's a weekend and no one's touched them, then it's fine. It's within SLA and stuff. We only want to look at the same working hours of the ticket. So this escalation or this allocation of additional resource will only happen after, and then we can say, for example, it could be 10 hours, right? So we can go 600 minutes. And this, as you can see, again, no complex calculation, anything, just a few things added. And this will automatically be added to this workflow step, right? And at the same time, of course, we can make it go to a different step, right? We'll move it to escalated, for example. So automatically that will, alert the right people, move the workflow, reassign it, put it up a level, and so on. This is just an example, sort of how flexible our actions can be. For the example of a queued mailbox, it could queue a script. So, this is something that will make life a lot easier, because it used to be a bit more complicated. You have to, consider rules, and you have to have sort of back-end processes to check that. Sometimes people used to use PowerShell scripts. We want to bring everything in app. We want to enable, empower the user to be able to do this themselves. And this is the solution we've found. So another feature that's hopefully going to be very, very well received. One more, if you don't mind, that I really like bringing up is, and I like this one because, we're big on, I like when people say that Halo is sexy. It looks good. We like the end users accessing the portal being a bit like, wow, like this is better than our 1990s old legacy system interface. And that's something we also take quite a bit of pride on. And one of the things that look quite good on the form on the portal, right? For example, if we go into a new starter request, is the ability we can actually collapse, right? Sections of the form which contain a certain amount of fields, right? We call those field groups. So it's not only just a long list of fields, it's fields that belong to groups of fields. It looks a lot better, it looks cleaner. It allows the, whoever is filling up the form to go section by section, one step at a time. And also visually, it's a lot better. In a form like this, there's only a couple groups. It might not be as obvious, but when we're talking about those forms that we know that some departments have, think HR, think facilities, lots of checkboxes, lots of disclaimers, then this becomes quite handy. So what we added the ability to do is, first we introduced field groups as their own configuration entities, so they're easier to access, right? So you can quickly create them. If there is a field group that you're already using and you only want to change, you want to reuse for a different ticket type, right? For a different form, but you only want to change one thing on it. You don't have to rebuild it. Right? You can quickly clone it, right? Didn't used to be the case, and you'll change that. But another very, very important thing, in my opinion, is the ability to have the visibility of the whole field group depend on the value of another field, right? So, it could be, for example, that here, right? Well, this is a bit of a bad example because the question, do you require hardware for the new starter, is already part of the field group. But we could move this out, and the whole visibility of the field group will be dependent on the value of that field, right? Let's do this really quickly again. I like to show how everything is a few quick clicks away. So we make the change here in new starter details on our, oh, that's the wrong one, sorry, it's new starter user requirements. Let's go back a level. Just move it out of here, and what we'll do in here is we'll add that checkbox as part of this group of fields, and we will remove it from here, and we're going to have the visibility depend on this field. What's the advantage here, and why do I think it's better for the end user? They don't even see this unless they decide they want to see it. So to start with, the form is cleaner. They're not looking at this form thinking, hey, perfect example. They're not looking at this form thinking, oh, I have to fill in another 10 minutes of my day. No, if they don't have any hardware requirements, then this is it, 3 fields. If they do, then this is where it expands, right? Again, we start with the basic example, but when you start thinking about those complex form requirements that you might have on SharePoint, things like that, just put them in Halo and the user's going to love it. That's what we like to think.
I think of like ordering new hardware, right? I want to order new hardware. Do you require any accessories? No. well, then I don't need to pop up anything to give them an accessories list or other instructions that just don't need to be bothered with it. And then it doesn't, because sometimes, I mean, you start to think about, the customer experience. If they come in and they're like, holy smokes, look at this form. This is going to take me a month to fill in, right? When realistically it's not, because they're just picking a few things here and there. But they, with the way you guys have done, where the forms are dynamic, even with just visibility controls, I'm not being presented with stuff, and the form will adjust and adapt based on the questions that I'm answering and the information that we need in order to do it. So it makes it a very, very good user experience that I don't see a bunch of white space and other stuff. I see that which I need, and then I'll be presented with the things that are needed based on the questions that I've answered. I think of things like in change management and other areas where this can be very, very valuable. Based on I've already got 10 examples I'm thinking in my mind of things from a process workflow that would make this very cool. And again, it becomes that user experience, not only users in the portal, but also technicians. When you start to think about change, man, I got to put a change in. Am I presented with a bunch of questions? I think of customers like you think about healthcare, right? Is this a change to our health management system where we're dealing with health records? If it's no, then I don't have a bunch of other questions that are related to that I have to answer that are drive to change risk or risk scores, etc. It could make the forms a lot cleaner. And then based on what I pick, I'm presented with what I want. I can imagine customers watching this going, "Oh, I can see where I could use that." And
it's easier.
Other things we do. Yeah,
it's easier because it's not just every field you need to make conditional. No, you create a group, like you said, perfect, like health risk, right? And that whole group, if the category of health isn't set, just doesn't exist. So you set the visibility condition on the whole group instead of saying, field by field. And this is something that, again, on a day-to-day basis, once, requirements, the goalposts are always shifting and requirements are always changing. So if you have to do this all the time saving does add up. And
well, it's time saving on two fronts, though. It's time saving for the administrator when building it, because they can make a whole set of fields conditional where, like you said, before you do them one by one, you could do that. It just takes a little more time. It's even quicker to deploy, large sets of data collection and make it easy. That's some very, very cool stuff. You guys are always thinking of crazy things.
Yeah, whilst we were talking about it, I just sort of brought up the technician screen, like you said. I always have the end user in mind. I like non-technology people, like falling in love, like seeing the progression even more. But obviously, it's exactly the same on the agent, technician, analyst side, however you want to call it. And another one actually for our analysts and our agents, Mike, if you don't mind me adding one, is this is something that's been brought up to me a few times, and personally I've seen it a lot because I spent quite a lot of time on our internal Halo. So you'll be using Halo for a few things, right? You can look at my tab here, and I will be doing some configuration changes on internal Halo, and I'll be looking at some of our change requests, just looking at some approvals. And at the same time, I might be halfway drafting a knowledge base article, right? There's only 4. Believe it or not, there's times where I might have 10, 12 tabs open in our Halo. And it can be a bit frustrating. It's all Halo. Where's what? Where do I go? And because of this, we've introduced a setting that we can just rename the tabs based on the breadcrumb, right? So for our technicians that are doing different things or do want to know what's going on, right? Obviously, I don't need to only switch the setting on, but also give it a quick refresh, and you will start seeing that all my different tabs are now informative. They're telling me what they're about. It used to just be portal and agent sides. Now I can see where my drafting is. So say I'm halfway through approving this change, right? And then I say, let's go back and finish the article. I know exactly where to go. If you have, 1 or 2, probably not an issue. If you start having 4, 5, 10, 12, then this is, an element of frustration just removed altogether. And something that it's useful because we all have so many tabs open, and I like this change quite a lot in terms of again day to day. And one more before we finish off, Mike, is radio type custom fields. A lot of our customers, we have the ability to have single selection, pick from a list. But a lot of our customers really like the idea of being able to have the radio display instead of just a drop down. What's the advantage? I can visualize what the options are straight away, right? So here we can have a standard drop down, or we can have a radio selection. What's the example? I don't have to go through a list of all our, different types of laptops and actually scroll through one by one. I can actually visualize all of them and just pick one, right? As always, it's really simple to set up things in Halo. Again, you just select the input type, and that will give you the ability to do so. One more thing is for surveys. This is a big advantage. This standard survey that we all have to fill in. How are you, like satisfied, very satisfied, NA, or dissatisfied, or very dissatisfied, right? Now, in those cases, you'd like a horizontal radio field where the title, the field label is the same, so you don't have to keep repeating the title, right? But you have a survey where, it just displays that way, where the options are at the top, and you just go down the list, right? Because they all have the same 5 sets of answers, right? So if you're imagining your surveys that you do on the name a few names, imagine, SurveyMonkey or things like that, just use Halo for them. Just use Halo for them, email them in bulk, get your feedback, and they can look exactly like you're expecting them to look now. So those small changes now hopefully will enable a few more processes for everyone, all departments. And
can you show us an example of what the radio option looks like as you change that?
I don't have it pre-configured, but it won't take me long at all. So let's go really simple: good, mediocre, bad. Right? These are my 3 values. I'm going to copy it across, and I'm going to say this is going to be service level as a field, right? And then I'm going to create a field which is responsiveness. Obviously, just go single selection, and we want to have radio, and we want to have this horizontal again. And on our list, we want to have the same 3 values, right? You're right, it's probably easier to picture this. And then let's going to say politeness. So I'm just going to create 3 for now. Let's go and add them to a new form. For simplicity, I'm going to add it as a new ticket form. It would show exactly the same way we were to add it to a survey, but I don't want to go through the whole bringing the survey, waiting for the survey to arrive. So I'm just going to go into the 3 fields I created. So politeness, service level, and responsiveness, right? Create this as an example test tickets. Few settings are mandatory. Hopefully this will save. Forgot the last mandatory setting. And what I'll do is I'll actually display it on the portal as well. So you can see it on there. As you saw before, it's pretty much always the same thing, whether it's on the portal or on the agent on the analyst side. So it doesn't really matter. I'm just going to create this button to say submit feedback. I'm going to create as a different button on the portal, right? And just going to ensure that this is recalculated correctly. We're going to land on our portal, refresh it, and we're going to have submit feedback, and we're going to have our fields like survey, right? Again, I went very simple here. Just wanted to make sure so that the idea and the visualization is there. You can do with this what you're expecting to do, but obviously the idea is so quick for a user. A drop down is 2 clicks. Clicks to expand the drop down, click to select what you want, plus the scrolling. Here it's very visual. Bear in mind that the screen will definitely adjust, so it doesn't have to be 3, it can be 4, 5, even 6, 7 options. But yeah, this is kind of the idea of a horizontal radio that you can use, and it's simpler. It's nicer.
Or vertical radio when you're doing a yes no, or
exactly that.
Things like that are where it's a singular, because you guys have innovated the multi-select functionality, where if I want to have a multi-select field, I just keep picking them, they all show up, and I can drop anyone that I want by clicking on a little X,
exactly.
which is great for multi-select. This is now another way for a user to interact with the form. These are very commonly used in my experience with yes/no questions, or ones where you want to show both options and you don't want them to have to click on a drop down to see both options. So very, very cool. Crazy to see all the things you guys are doing there. Looking forward to the next updates, because there'll be more coming. There's more coming, guys. More coming.
Shall we drop a couple teasers, or there's a couple things that maybe we can anticipate?
Well, yeah, drop some teasers, because
so
you're the man that knows what's in the pipeline.
Well, one thing we have to talk about maybe, and it could make a good tech talk, is we will talk about the ability to push changes between development and production environments. This is something that we actually released a couple months ago, but I think it's very important to actually present. We'll do a little back and forth. A few things that we do that maybe not everyone does as well, like being able to push bidirectionally and conflict checking and that kind of stuff. Hopefully that's fairly exciting. But some bigger things are coming with extending our chatbot to be able to deploy through a manifest on Microsoft Teams. Imagine, the ideal world where the end user doesn't even have to access the portal to chat to a technician, or to access knowledge base articles, or to check the status of a service, all those things. The same bots that you configure in Halo, you don't have to just publish in Halo or just publish on a website anymore. You can publish directly to Microsoft Teams and Slack, which is going to happen in a couple months. So, that's fairly exciting. Part of the AI conversation on there as well, some enhancements coming in the next few months for that. Part of the bot flow to be able to kind of, have a ChatGPT-like interaction as well. So it doesn't necessarily have to be an agent. And yeah, hopefully that's quite exciting as well. And lastly, we can talk about our automation runbook as well. So now not only you can have integration within Halo, but the runbook of automations can trigger outside integration. So, everyone has a different HR system. We don't have to build native integrations with all the HR systems up there, right? If there is a holiday request in Halo, click of a button on the ticket, that can trigger an API call to your specific HR system, even if it doesn't have a native integration with Halo. And although there is some complexity there, because of course there needs to be an API request built in, the main advantage of that is that, I'm not a developer. I have some experience with Halo, but I am able to set that up in 10 minutes. And, anyone who has some knowledge of, how the two systems work will be able to do the same. There's no, code required. It's more of an idea of passing a variable and that variable being received by the third-party system. We say that Halo should centralize and should be the center of the service management world. And to do that, it needs to be able to talk through a few different systems within the organization. And that's where we're heading. And that's sort of why we're introducing this. So I know I spoke a lot, and each one of these can be a different tech talk, but we'll be busy in the next few months, Mike, I think, and that's always good.
I'm looking forward to continuing the chats and seeing all the cool things you guys are working on. So Gianmarco, thanks for joining me today. It's always a pleasure and get together and talk through these things. ExcaliburData.com. You can learn a lot about Halo. Reach out to our team. We can get together with the great minds at Halo and see what Halo can do for your organization. Catch us again as we continue to talk about all the wonderful and fun stuff that is Halo. Take care, everyone.